June 1945, Pearl Harbor Naval Base. Dear son, your father did something in May 1945 that no submarine commander had ever done before, something that, according to naval engineering, was impossible, something that bet 67 American lives on a physics calculation. We sank our own submarine, intentionally, flooded the ballast tanks, took USS Tang to the ocean floor, 300 feet down, sat on the bottom while an enemy transport passed directly overhead. My crew thought I'd lost my mind. "Skipper, we're sinking. We need to surface." "Negative. We're exactly where we need to be, directly beneath that enemy vessel. Now we wait." "Wait for what, sir?" "Wait for physics to turn this submarine into a weapon." We sat on the ocean floor for 12 minutes, listening to the enemy transport's propellers churning overhead, calculating, waiting for the exact moment. Then, I gave the order that saved American lives and ended an enemy vessel. Emergency blow all tanks, maximum ascent, all ahead flank. We pumped every pound of compressed air we had into the ballast tanks, expelled all the water, turned 4,300 tons of American steel into a missile. USS Tang launched off the ocean floor like a torpedo, rocketed upward at 20 knots, 300 feet in 18 seconds. Our conning tower punched through that enemy transport's keel from below, ripped open the hull. The vessel sank in 4 minutes. American ingenuity, American courage, American physics. I'm writing this because someday you'll ask what your father did in the Pacific. And I want you to understand not just what happened, but why it mattered. Why 67 American sailors agreed to do something impossible. Why we risked everything on a tactic that had never been tested, because that's what Americans do. We find a way. Let me start from the beginning, son. Explain what USS Tang was, what we did out there in the Pacific, why that day in May mattered. USS Tang was a Ballast-class submarine, commissioned 1943, displacement 1,526 tons surfaced, 2,414 tons submerged, length 311 feet, crew 10 officers, 57 enlisted men, armed with 24 torpedoes, 1 5-inch deck gun, and the finest American sailors in the fleet. Our mission: patrol enemy shipping lanes, disrupt supply convoys, protect American forces by ensuring enemy supplies never reach their destinations. Submarine warfare is patience. Days of searching, hours of stalking, minutes of attack. We'd spend weeks at sea, living in a steel tube underwater, waiting for the moment when we could strike and make a difference. By May 1945, Tang had completed 5 war patrols. We'd accounted for 24 enemy vessels, cargo ships, tankers, transports. Everyone we neutralized meant fewer supplies reaching enemy forces, meant American soldiers faced weaker opposition. But May 24, 1945, was different. That was the day we ran out of conventional options and had to invent a new one. May 24th, 0600 hours. We'd been tracking an enemy convoy for 8 hours, 12 vessels, large cargo transports. Aerial reconnaissance suggested they were carrying supplies, equipment, materials, provisions, destined for occupied territories. Standard American submarine tactics. Approach submerged. Get into attack position. Fire torpedoes. Each submarine carried 24. Use them wisely. Make every shot count. We stalked that convoy all morning, positioned ourselves ahead of their formation, waited for them to come to us. 0900 hours. First attack run. Fired 6 torpedoes, 4 hits. 2 enemy transports stopped moving, beginning to list. Crews abandoning vessel. The convoy scattered. Standard response. When submarines attack, merchant vessels break formation, zigzag, make themselves harder targets. We repositioned, found another group. 1,100 hours. Second attack run. 6 more torpedoes, 3 hits, another transport neutralized, 1 damaged, slowing down. The convoy was in chaos now, vessels heading in different directions, some trying to flee, some trying to protect others. Exactly what we wanted. Confusion meant easier targets. 1,300 hours, 3rd attack run, 6 torpedoes, 4 hits, 2 more transports going down, 1,500 hours, 4th and final attack run. We fired our last 6 torpedoes, 3 hits. 1 transport sank immediately, another damaged severely. Total, 24 torpedoes fired, 18 hits, 8 enemy vessels neutralized, 3 damaged, successful patrol by any measure. We'd significantly disrupted enemy supply lines, mission accomplished. Except for one problem. 1 transport remained, the largest one. Approximately 10,000 tons, fully loaded, moving at 12 knots toward its destination, and we were out of torpedoes. Completely empty. A submarine with no ammunition. My executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Jack Morris, came to the conning tower. "Skipper, we've expended all torpedoes. Successful engagement. 8 confirmed. Recommend we break off and return to base. Standard procedure. Sensible. Safe. American submarines don't stick around after firing all their weapons. You complete the mission and go home." But I was looking through the periscope at that last transport, thinking about what it carried, thinking about where it was going, thinking about American forces who'd face those supplies. "XO, what's our torpedo count?" "0, sir. Magazine empty." "Deck gun ammunition?" 40 rounds of 5-inch, but sir, we can't surface in these waters. Enemy aircraft patrol this area. We'd be vulnerable." "Agreed. Surface engagement isn't viable." "Then we're breaking off." I kept watching that transport through the periscope, big, slow, heavily laden, a perfect target. If only we had 1 more torpedo. But we didn't. We had something else, though. We had 4,300 tons of American submarine. We had compressed air tanks, we had ballast systems, and we had physics. "Negative, we're not breaking off. We're sinking that transport." Morris looked at me like I'd spoken another language. "Sir, we have no torpedoes. How do we—" "We're going to use the submarine itself." Silence in the conning tower. Every officer within earshot stopped what they were doing. "Morris." "Sir, I'm not sure I understand." "We're going to ram it from below." More silence. Then, "Ram it from below?" "Sir, submarines don't ram. We're not built for that. And from below means we're going to sink to the ocean floor, position ourselves directly beneath that transport, and then surface at maximum velocity. Our conning tower will strike their keel. Physics will do the rest. You need to understand, son, why this was considered impossible, why every naval engineer would have said it couldn't work. Submarines are designed for controlled diving and surfacing, slow, steady, safe. You don't sink to the ocean floor because you might not be able to get back up. You don't do emergency surfaces at full speed because the stress could rupture your hull. And you definitely don't use a submarine as a battering ram because they're not built for impact. But those rules assume normal operations. This wasn't normal. Morris ran the numbers. "Sir, depth here is approximately 300 feet. If we flood ballast completely, we'll be on the bottom. To surface from that depth at high speed, we'd need to expel all ballast water simultaneously using maximum compressed air. The stress on the hull will be within tolerances. Tang is American built. She can handle it. The angle of ascent could exceed 30 degrees. The crew will need to brace. Then we'll warn them. What's the ascent velocity? Theoretical maximum with full emergency blow. Approximately 20 knots vertical. 300 feet in roughly 18 seconds. And if we time it so we're directly beneath the enemy transport when we breach, our conning tower, which extends approximately 20 feet above the main hull, would strike their keel. At 20 knots, 400 tons of force, it would penetrate the hull. Sink them? Almost certainly, sir. But we'd also sustain damage, possibly severe. We might not be able to dive again. Don't need to dive again if the target is neutralized. What's the risk to crew? Impact will be severe. Men need to be braced, secured, but if everyone's prepared, survivable. Then we're doing it. I called the crew to battle stations, explained what we were about to attempt. Men, we've expended all torpedoes. Mission successful. 8 enemy vessels neutralized. But one remains, large transport, carrying supplies that will be used against American forces if we let it reach its destination. Standard procedure says we break off. Head home. I'm not following standard procedure. We're going to sink that transport using a tactic that's never been attempted in naval history. We're going to sink ourselves, then use physics to turn this submarine into a weapon. It's dangerous, it's unprecedented, and it's going to work because you're American sailors, and American sailors complete the mission. Silence on the intercom. Then, my chief of the boat, a tough old sailor from Texas. Skipper, we're with you. Let's sink that transport. That's the American spirit, son. When the mission matters, you find a way. 1,530 hours. We positioned USS Tang directly in the path of the enemy transport. About a quarter-mile ahead, the transport was making 12 knots, would reach our position in approximately 75 seconds. Helm, all stop. Maintain position. All stop, aye, sir. Chief, prepare to flood all ballast tanks on my command. Prepare to flood all ballast, aye, sir. I watched through the periscope, the enemy transport approaching, large, bow cutting through the water, completely unaware a predator waited below. Flood all ballast tanks. Take us down. Maximum rate. Flood all ballast tanks, aye. The submarine lurched. Water rushed into the ballast tanks. We started sinking. Not the controlled descent of a normal dive. This was a dead weight drop. 4,000 tons of steel falling to the ocean floor. Depth gauge, 100 feet, 150 feet, 200 feet, 250 feet. The hull creaked under the pressure. 300 feet is deep. The ocean weighs heavy at that depth. Every square inch of hull facing 30 atmospheres of pressure. 280 feet, 290 feet, 300 feet. Thud. We hit bottom. USS Tang sitting on the Pacific Ocean floor. Through the hull, we could hear the enemy transport's propellers, churning water, getting closer, the sound getting louder. Sonar, track that vessel. I need constant updates on position. Aye, sir. Target bearing 090, range 400 yards, 350, 300. I ran the calculation in my head. Transport doing 12 knots. That's about 20 feet per second. We needed to time the surface so we'd intercept exactly when the transport was directly overhead. Too early, we'd miss. Too late, we'd miss. Had to be precise. 200 yards, 150, 100. The propeller noise directly above us now. Loud, the entire submarine vibrating from the sound. 50 yards, 25. I waited, counting seconds, judging distance by sound. Target is directly overhead. Repeat, target is directly overhead. Emergency surface. Blow all ballast tanks. Maximum air. All ahead flank. What happened next, son, was physics. Beautiful, violent, American physics. We pumped 3,000 psi of compressed air into every ballast tank simultaneously. Expelled 400 tons of water in under 2 seconds. The submarine went from negative buoyancy to maximum positive buoyancy instantly. 4,300 tons of steel rocketed off the ocean floor. The acceleration was incredible. The deck pitched up at 30 degrees. Men grabbed anything bolted down. Equipment shifted. The hull groaned under the stress. But she held. American engineering held. Depth gauge, 280 feet, 250 feet, 200 feet. We were accelerating, picking up speed as we rose. The compressed air kept flowing. the ballast tanks completely empty now, nothing but air inside them. We were more buoyant than a cork, 150 feet, 100 feet, 50 feet. Brace for impact, all hands brace, 20 feet, 10 feet. We breached. USS Tang exploded out of the ocean at 20 knots. The conning tower, 20 feet of reinforced American steel, hit the enemy transport's keel like a punch from below. The impact threw everyone forward. The hull rang like a bell, metal screaming against metal, our conning tower penetrating the enemy's hull, ripping open the plates, creating a massive breach below the waterline. We fell back, crashed down into the water, spray everywhere, the submarine rolling from the impact. But we were intact, damaged, but intact. The conning tower bent, hull scarred, but watertight. Functional. And the enemy transport? Through the periscope, I watched it list immediately. The breach below the waterline flooding the hold, the vessel tilting, crew abandoning, lifeboats deploying. 4 minutes later, it sank. Stern first, supplies and all. Never reached its destination, never supplied enemy forces, never threatened American positions, neutralized by physics, by American ingenuity, by 67 sailors willing to bet their lives on a tactic that had never been tested. We limped back to Pearl Harbor. Took us 8 days. Tang couldn't dive properly anymore. The impact had damaged systems. We traveled on the surface the entire way, vulnerable. But we made it. When we docked, the damage was obvious. The conning tower looked like it had been hit by a freight train. Hull plates buckled. Every engineer who saw it asked the same question. What did you hit? My report was simple. Enemy transport, from below, intentionally. The debrief took 6 hours. Naval intelligence wanted every detail. How we'd calculated the timing, how we'd survived the ascent, how we'd managed to surface at that velocity without rupturing the hull. I told them, American engineering tolerances, American sailor training, American determination to complete the mission. They asked if the tactic could be repeated. I said, theoretically, yes, but it requires specific conditions, shallow enough water to reach the bottom, deep enough that you can build sufficient velocity, an enemy vessel that doesn't know you're there, and a crew willing to trust physics and their commanding officer. They classified the report, said the tactic was too dangerous for standard doctrine, but they noted it. In circumstances where conventional weapons are expended and a critical target remains, alternative methods may be considered. Translation: what we did was insane, but it worked, so it's now technically an option. Son, I'm writing this because I want you to understand what happened that day. Not just the mechanics, the physics, the tactics, the engineering, but the meaning. America won the Pacific conflict not because we had more submarines or bigger guns. We won because American sailors were willing to adapt, to innovate, to look at a problem and say, the standard solution won't work, so we'll invent a new one. That enemy transport was going to reach its destination if we followed standard procedure. Standard procedure said, out of torpedoes, break off, go home. But standard procedure didn't account for American ingenuity, didn't account for 67 men willing to trust physics, engineering, and each other. We took a submarine, a vessel designed for stealth and torpedo attacks, and turned it into a battering ram. Used the ocean itself as a launching pad. Employed Archimedes' principle of buoyancy as a weapon. That's American problem-solving, son. That's what makes our nation strong. Not just the equipment, the people operating it, the willingness to think differently, to take calculated risks, to complete the mission no matter what. You'll learn in school about physics, about buoyancy, displacement, pressure. When you do, remember this. Your father used those principles to sink an enemy vessel in 1945. Archimedes discovered that an object submerged in fluid experiences an upward force equal to the weight of the fluid displaced. Basic physics, taught in every school, but your father weaponized it. turned a 300-foot column of ocean into a launch tube, used compressed air and buoyancy to accelerate 4,000 tons of steel to 20 knots in 18 seconds. That's the difference between knowing physics and understanding physics. Knowing means you can pass a test. Understanding means you can save 67 American lives and complete a mission everyone said was impossible. USS Tang was repaired. Took 3 months in dry dock. They rebuilt the conning tower, reinforced the hull, upgraded systems. We completed 2 more war patrols before the conflict ended. Conventional operations, standard tactics. Never had to attempt the Tang maneuver again. That's what the crew called it. But we would have, if circumstances required it. If an enemy vessel threatened American forces and we were out of conventional options, we'd have done it again. Because that's what American sailors do. We complete the mission. We protect our brothers in arms. We find a way when there appears to be no way. The conflict ended August 1945. USS Tang was decommissioned 1946. She served her country with distinction. 26 enemy vessels, thousands of tons of supplies prevented from reaching enemy forces, countless American lives protected, and one tactic that naval engineers said was impossible, proven possible by Americans. I came home in late 1945, married your mother in 1946, started the life we have now, peaceful, safe, free. But I'll never forget May 24th, 1945, the day we sank our own submarine to sink an enemy transport. The day 67 American sailors trusted physics, engineering, and each other. The day we proved that American ingenuity can turn disadvantage into victory. I'm proud of what we did that day. Proud of every man on USS Tang who trusted me when I gave an order that sounded insane. Proud of American engineering that built a submarine strong enough to survive what we did to it. Proud of a nation that produces sailors willing to do whatever it takes to protect freedom. You're growing up in a world we fought to protect. A world where American innovation, courage, and determination defeated tyranny. Where ordinary men did extraordinary things because the mission mattered more than personal safety. Remember that. Remember that Americans don't give up when conventional options run out. We invent new options. We adapt. We overcome. We turn submarines into missiles. We use the ocean as a weapon. We make physics our ally. That's who we are. That's what we do. That's what your father did on May 24th, 1945. And I'd do it again tomorrow if freedom required it. Your father, Commander Robert H. Chase, USS Tang SS 306, United States Navy. P.S. When you study Archimedes in school and the teacher asks if anyone knows a practical application of the buoyancy principle, raise your hand. Tell them your father used it to sink an enemy vessel in the Pacific. Then watch their face when you explain how. Subscribe for more untold stories of American innovation where impossible became possible, where American sailors proved that courage, physics, and determination can overcome any obstacle. This is what makes America exceptional, not just the equipment, but the people who refuse to accept defeat.